Financial planner and wealth management advisor Brian Ward joins the show this week. Brian has been in the industry for close to 20 years and the last 4 years with Barnum Financial Group. He is here to share his experience through it all. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. All right, Brian Ward, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you on the show. And, as I was thinking and preparing for today's show, I was thinking about the lunch you and I had. That was probably about 4 years ago when you were at a major mutual carrier, doing really well, very successful. And you were at this, call it a ceiling of complexity, and you wanted more out of this business. And you ended up taking the leap of faith and making the move to Barnum. And now I look, and I won't steal some of the thunder, but a little bit of it, you 2.5 times what you were doing when you got here 3.5 years ago. And this year you'll 2.5 times that. So 5 times the amount of production you were doing. And I would say you're having more fun. And the big saying I have is, you're just getting started. So why don't you tell me where you were then and what happened? And let's start to unbundle this a little bit for all our audience here.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Paul. I've been a listener on the program. There's been some great thoughts shared with the audience, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So thank you for the opportunity to just sit down today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I was at my last firm for about 9 years, and we were having some fun. The modus operandi there was much more in favor of attacking the production side of the planning first. And, the sentiment was more, those are the conversations that are oftentimes overlooked. And so there might have been some nobility in that, but I felt like we had a lot more to offer and couldn't quite connect the dots on how to do that at a high level. And so starting to talk with you and Joe in the firm about 4 years ago, COVID kind of slowed things down for a while. It gave me an appropriate amount of time to collect my thoughts around the future. I kept coming back to, if I stayed there for the next 5 years, what would my business look like? And if I made the change, what could it look like?
I love it. And I love how you did that.
That was a little intimidating at first, right? Talking to you, hearing the big picture where you thought we could take it. But I kept coming back to, I had conviction in myself. I knew we had a lot more to offer the people we were working with, the people we were serving. And I was very confident in my ability to execute the game plan that you laid out. And so we went ahead and made the change, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's, well, thank you. And, thank you for having the faith. And I think that we had the faith in you. And sometimes when, I meet with advisors and coach advisors, what I realize is we sometimes have more conviction in where they can get to than they do. And we have to show them that vision. And once they buy into that, it's the next level. So I know that in your practice, there was a bunch of things that you did that you weren't doing. And I'll use Transition Solutions as an example. You spent 9 years, you were in the industry for say 15, 20 years. And you dove right in and said, I'm going to do these calls. I'm going to learn this program from the bottom up, which many people that had your experience wouldn't do that. So why did you do that? And how did that help you?
Yeah. So the programs that were available in the firm have been instrumental in the growth, right? Previously, we were, referral only, one person to the next, and that limited the, let's say, addressable market, right? Plugging into the national partnerships the firm has here and, being able to educate an audience, for example, within Plan Smart, and having, national engagements with large employers with transitions, right? There was a huge opportunity to now take what we had learned, what we knew we could offer and execute on, and really, offer it to a much larger audience. And so not having been in those roles before, I decided it'd be very helpful if I was going to grow a team per the vision you laid out for me personally, that I would know what that day-to-day looked like so that I could help develop the people that would be in those seats over time. With PlanSmart, I sat in on presentations, took copious notes, practiced. Now educating the workforces there myself, we have a high engagement level. People are finding the value in what we're delivering. And it's really created a lot of opportunity for us to help improve people's situations.
It's amazing. And for the audience that doesn't know what PlanSmart is PlanSmart is a program here where we go to Fortune 5000 companies where we're teaching financial education in the workplace. And, we partnered Brian up pretty quickly with some people, and that's where he got to that point and learned. And now he's running a lot of that on his own now too. Yeah.
And that's been fantastic. I mean, you have like turning points in the career. I would say coming to Barnum is a turning point, clearly. You also have these other wins that provide like wind in the sails, right? And every time you do a presentation, you're getting feedback. Did you find it helpful? Would you like to have a conversation, right? People are sending us pictures of themselves on fishing trips on Global Relay. Of course, it's text message on Global Relay. Okay. It's not, in case Debbie's listening. There's these little wins that aren't always, you're adding a client. It's seeing that the clients are viewing you as a real partner in what you're doing. And that's really part of the fulfilling, part of the job we do.
Yeah. And so just to give, how many of those are you working on right now? And what's that look like on a day to day? You teach every week? Do you teach every couple of weeks?
I would say on average, we're probably teaching about 7 or 8 sessions a month. Okay. Some months it's less, some are more intensive, depending on the seasonality of the calendar. There's the award-winning RetireWise program that we're offering. Some employers want to do it once in the fall, once in the spring. That's 4 consecutive weeks. So there's some seasonality to it. The summer's a little lighter, with people taking time off. HR talks to us. They talk to the team here in the firm. They really want to maximize the attendance, right? They see it as a true value add to what they're doing for, retention and recruiting. And they want the population within the organization to take full advantage.
Yeah. And listen, Brian, I think that timing's everything in life, right? You came here and not only did you learn the program, but you talked about COVID before. And I always say that there was so much bad that came of COVID, but there was a lot of good. And now instead of doing this program regionally at a company where you would take the train into New York City and teach to 30, 40 people, now you're able to sit in your office in Shelton, do it virtually, and speak to hundreds of people throughout the whole country. Has that changed the dynamics for you in terms of people being national versus local?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the day-to-day has changed dramatically. I used to put something like 40,000 miles a year on my car, driving to Boston, taking the train, you're driving to every meeting, right? The efficiency that's been created. And I like to think that, it's not something that we've imposed on the population that we're serving, right? It's something that we have clients who live 10 minutes away from the office. They want to Zoom just in case there's an accident on the highway and they get stuck, right? Yeah. So it's really changed the dynamic between what we're able to do, right? We're able to see so many more people and have so many more meaningful conversations throughout each day. And that's so different from how it was, 7, 8 years ago, where mostly everything was in person. And I remember, Demolition Man, for anyone who's older, right? I'm 41. It's, 30 years ago, this movie came out. There's a scene where they're in a conference room and there's these tablets of people sitting at like seats at the table. And it was so futuristic and far out there. And now it's just reality, right? So you're not in person, but you're not losing 100% of being with that person. And I think that really helps solidify the relationship, which is ultimately what we're trying to build with people.
It shows that I'm a lot older than you, because the show I relate to that is the Jetsons. So I'm much older than you, Brian. Jesus. Hopefully, if we post this on video, I look younger though, but I am much older.
It's all lighting.
I like the lighting. That's good. Thank God for that. Well, I mean, it's interesting. On one of the shows a few months ago, one of the advisors said something that you just said about the 40 miles. And I had one of the, we'll get to your team later, but we had one of the young advisors on your team saw me running around and said, man, thank God I don't have to drive 40,000 miles on a car. I might still have my first car if I didn't have to do that when I started. So when you think about going into PlanSmart and being mentored and, other advisors helping you. One of the genesis of that really, I think, part of the thing that took you to the next level was very quickly on, probably a year plus in, after you got your sea legs and you got all transitioned over mentally, you started to build a team with a junior. And let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go to some other programs that you're in.
Yeah. So the team came together quite organically, right? I wasn't recruiting for juniors. There was a younger person in the firm, newer to the business, had a lot of potential. I was asked to help develop them and help them really, understand the day to day and be there to answer all the questions that come up, right? And we hit it off. There was some synergy there. We decided to team. Okay. We started to have some success. We were approached by another person in the firm. They wanted to join. Okay. And so now there are two guys on the team, Dan and Nick. They're doing fantastic. And, to their credit, they've really adopted, the relentless forward motion attitude that I like to carry and promote, right? We're going to have, fantastic days. We're going to have days where we did a lot of work and, we're kind of unsure of what's happening. Right. And, what they've done a great job is just adopting, let's approach every day with rigor. Let's provide an exceptional experience for everyone we talk to. And, in doing so, we're going to be able to impact very many lives over the course of our careers.
And now, do you think, you use the word when you were talking about your last firm and protection, at the core? I believe that protection should be at the core as well. And you use the word a noble profession. These are young guys, 30 and under. And how did you instill that in them? Because I feel like they totally get that. They're our top lives guys here. And what did you bring from your upbringing in the industry that helped them with that?
Yeah, I think just, stories have a profound impact on people, right? So I shared stories around death claims that have been delivered. We stress that not every provider in the space is approaching. And if we don't, what's the risk in doing so, right? We have that conversation. We give it the amount of attention that it deserves and needs. Then we don't have to worry about getting a phone call that says, why didn't you bring this up?
Yep.
And that's really important, right? And they've both been very coachable, right? To their credit, they want to learn. They want the learning curve to be as steep as possible. And they're working hard every day towards that end.
Yeah, I love that. And that's got to be really fun for you to be, the coach, the mentor, the leader for people that want that like that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would say even going back to the last firm, I heard something on the radio one year and it was like, if you're a 230 hitter in the majors, right? After 5 years in, like you're a 230 hitter. And I was like, man, am I a 230 hitter right now in the space that we're in? I feel like we have so much more to offer. And, making the change with firms and being in a different, we'll say ecosystem and now having two juniors, like I feel like we're starting to be more of like a 340 hitter and there's a lot more room to go. And, they're right there. They want to be the 340 hitter too.
I love it. I love it. That's so exciting. Great analogy too. So let's switch gears because one of the things that your juniors hit the ground running on is transition solutions. And as you did with PlanSmart, I was super impressed in the first, year that you really dug in on that and learned it from the ins and outs, and then were able to understand what a day in the life of them is. But how has that helped explain the program to everybody and give us an overview of what's going on with you guys with that?
Yeah. So basically, in summary, the program is somebody's leaving an employer. They have some time sensitive decisions to make around benefits planning. And we're put in touch as a extension of benefits to walk them through that decision making. Right. And it's a really sensitive time for these people. Some of them have retired. Some of them have been let go. There's been a reorganization, let's say. So it's really important that we approach these phone calls with some empathy, with some caring, and then see where, if anywhere, they want us to be a resource. And Dan and Nick have done a great job of approaching those phone calls as if they were relatives of theirs.
I love it.
They spend the adequate amount of time understanding what's going on. They're not in a rush to do anything. And I think that that's proven to yield a very high performance level, right? People are connecting with them. They're sharing with them, what's really on their mind. For folks that are retiring, they still have concerns, right? They've gotten to the top of the mountain. Now what, right? That hasn't really been addressed yet. Some of them want to make sure they don't lose the benefits, right? So they're equipped to handle mostly what's on the call, right? And when there are planning situations, they'll schedule some time for me to tackle that with those folks. And it's been a really helpful program. I mean, people get on the phone and they tell me, man, I can't believe that you're even here to help us with this. I didn't even know this existed. I wish that we knew this 2 years ago and we could have gotten ahead of the curve. So it's been a fantastic way to meet people. And we're doing a lot of work for people, and they don't turn into clients. And that's fine. That's the promise that we're making with the national partnership there with the benefits planning team. But it has given us a large amount of opportunity to really impact people.
Well, it's interesting too, is I give you credit plus Nick and Danny. What you said earlier is a really big point that I think people have lost in our industry. In the past, I can only remember when I was going out and going to someone's home, let's say, or sitting in the office with them. You would build this rapport. You'd get to know them a little bit. And I think a little of that got lost in Zoom, and especially for these guys, because they have a tremendous amount of other opportunities coming at them all day. So they're maybe getting 20, 30, 40 of those opportunities a day. So it's very easy to rush off the call and go to the next one, where they're taking the time and showing that empathy and really thinking deep about the planning is a huge win for the client, huge win for the industry, and obviously becomes a huge win for you guys. So I give you a lot of credit on how you're developing them.
Thanks. And I would say we spend some time. We're very much in alignment on what we want that client experience to look like. And, we are in a service industry, but it's very important to us that no one ever feels like we're a service provider. That's a distinction that I like to really influence with what we're doing day to day.
So go deeper on that.
Yeah. So a service provider, you call them, you get some answers, done deal, right? We're in a service industry, so we need to be there for people. We're making promises. We've heard it on previous podcasts, right? We're making promises to people. We need to fulfill the promise. We need to deliver. We need to execute. And, when you think about differentiators, why would I work with one team versus another? In my view, you get some smart people together, different teams, they're going to come up with great ideas. They're going to improve the outcomes. The clients have to trust that you're really keeping their needs ahead of anything else, that they trust you have the ability to execute, right? I mean, the power is in the execution. If they think you have a great idea and they're not sure you're going to execute, right? If they trust you're doing the right thing for them, you can execute on what you're promising, and the experience has been fantastic. That's probably a client that's going to want to partner with you, right? And so we spend some time, right? We want to be exceptional in everything that we do. We want to approach every day with a great attention to detail. We want to give everybody the floor as if they're the only person we're talking to every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, congratulations on that. So let's go a little different direction here. So you got these two programs, you got the team now. What are some of the challenges you guys are facing right now?
So some of the challenges are hiring for seats that don't exist yet, right? I mean, we've got some part-time help. We have full-time help with running the business and doing the client service. And now the next steps are going to be, and this is where working with you is very helpful with the bigger picture, what's next, right? What's coming down the road for us is hiring in advance of any capacity limitations, hiring in advance of the growth getting stale, so to speak. And so that's the big challenge, right? Within the business would be strategically making hires and looking at our team as an enterprise versus a team.
Yeah, I always try to use the analogy of you're an advisor and now you're trying to build distribution, right? And you're trying to go out and distribute products to more people and more efficiently. And that's the next step for you. So the other thing is what Brian just said is a pretty cool one is you have to be very careful. I always say, don't get crushed by the weight of your own practice. So you have to plan ahead. So you're thinking out now 3-4 years of what you need in terms of the team and the growth of the team as the leader.
Yeah. And it used to just be week to week.
Yeah.
Right. When you're a solo advisor, solo practitioner, you have some help, your planning is a lot different.
Yeah.
And now we're thinking, okay, so 6 months out, what do we look like a year from now, 2 years from now? What do we look like? And we're starting to make some planning decisions around that end. And, the ultimate idea here is we want to impact as many people as possible. If we're all being inundated, because as I mentioned, you're making promises to people. So somebody's hiring us to be a fee-based planner. Somebody's hiring us to manage assets. Like that is an ongoing conversation that doesn't stop. It is every 3 months, every 4 months, ad hoc in between. It's all the time. And so to your point, you don't want to get crushed under the practice, right? You have to hire more people and you have to put them in a position to be able to fulfill some of the demand, right? And make sure that everybody is handling, their oar in the boat. Right. And that's not just from me to Nick and Dan. It's to anyone else on the team who might be in a service related role or in a business development role or in a practice manager role.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So let's talk about mindset. So you just gave a great analogy of the 230 hitter versus the 340 hitter, right? Well, what was your mindset like, when you got here versus what it was when you started the new year this year?
Yeah. So the mindset when I got here was whatever it takes, right? There's a zero option mentality here. I've just made a massive decision. I've got a wife, Nancy, who stays home with our children. We have 2 young children. There wasn't any room for, I'm saying there wasn't any room for error, but there was marginal room for error, right? And it was high leverage and we wanted to have the vision come true, right? I mean, it was super exciting and energizing talking to you around what could that future look like and the ability to execute on it. I had high conviction in. And so the mindset was whatever it takes. I know Tony Maiulo said, the burn the boats anecdotal story. That's very much similar to what I'm talking about, right?
I had to make him tell me the whole story.
Yeah. And really it's a good one because you can't have like a safety net, right? If you have high conviction in the ability to execute on the vision, then you just have to do it, right? It's one step in front of the other and it's, working through the uncertainty, right? Now we're looking at becoming a prominent team in the firm, right? Which is growing to be a national firm. We're looking at, what's it going to take for us to be recognized in Shook Research, to be a top advisory team in the country. These are the things that are on our big board of the vision now, which is in complete, it's completely different than 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's get a little tactical for a second. I'm just more curious now. So, almost less than 4 years ago, and obviously we had COVID hit in between, but a typical week for you in your old world was how many meetings would you have? How many client meetings would you have a week on a normal week?
Yeah, between review calls and new introductory meetings, we would have anywhere from 15 to 20.
Okay. And now what is that? What's it look like today?
We're hovering around 40 on most weeks, sometimes as high as 50, not really ever beneath 32, 35.
Yeah. And so from a capacity standpoint, how does that work for you?
Yeah, there's still room to fill the capacity.
I love it.
Because we're hiring out more help, right? And with more help behind the scenes, it'll free us up. Those are just my meetings. Nick and Danny are also now taking meetings. And so you think about the scale of the impact. It used to be me, 15 to 20 people a week. Now there's collectively the 3 of us on the team that are client facing. And, collectively we'll probably in very short order be in front of maybe 75, 80 people a week.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So the law of large numbers is definitely playing in in your favor. It's interesting because I remember you telling me a story when you first got here, which I've used a lot. And you said that sourcing and finding clients was not simple in your old world. And you said before referral one by one and trying to get them. But you said, when I got someone, I was not letting that client go. And now with the abundance of opportunities, it just changes the mindset, and it's probably less stressful doing it that way.
Yeah. And what I want to distill from that initial point I made was somebody in the old world, right, was referring you or introducing you to someone they cared about.
Yep.
And so you almost felt a duty to get in touch with that person.
That's awesome.
And provide them the same offering, right, whatever they needed, but you had to provide the same offering to them so that your client wasn't upset with you for not getting in touch with them.
Yeah.
And to your point, there's a lot more opportunity now to speak with people through these programs that the firm has put in place. And that's some of the teaching that we're delivering to Nick and Dan. We have 2 or 3 new advisors joining the team in the next month and a half when they're done with some travel and graduation and so on. That's the big message I want them to take away, is we still have to approach each one of these people the same way. Because if we don't get in touch with them, the risk is we could have made a massive difference in their life and we missed it.
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening now that's driving, stop, go rewind it back. We're like 25 minutes in, and make sure you listen to that statement again, because I think that's the part that makes it the noble profession that it really is, when you have that attitude. So I commend you for that, because that's a difference maker, and that comes through on the phone when you do that.
Thank you.
No, it's really good stuff. So you have amazing momentum now, and you're picking up steam. You just said, you're adding infrastructure, you're adding a few advisors to the team. What's next?
So what's next is building the juniors on the team now to be in the space I'm occupying today, and taking the newer people who are going to be starting in a month or two and getting them to where they are.
Got it.
And then filling those seats.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And me kind of being maybe the North Star for where does that go from there, and still spending the time with clients, still spending the time developing the team, but really working towards the primary objective now of being recognized as a national leader in what we do, because our clients have put a lot of trust in us. And, I think that that's what we owe them, is to approach every day with the necessary amount of intensity so that we get recognition for the work we're doing, so they feel even better about the decision they made to partner with us.
Yeah, it's amazing. One thing that I was super impressed with, Brian, about you is I get what you said earlier about there's no looking back when you made this move, but I watch you bring it and show up every day ready to go within, very intentional work and focused. What do you do mentally to keep yourself in that zone? Is there anything that you do that helps you to do that?
Yeah, I like to map out what's going on, right? I think
balance. You are analytical.
Yes, quite analytical. There can be a downside to that too. But someone once told me, if you know what time it is, it's almost as good as knowing how the watch works.
Yes.
Right? The intentionality is a big thing, right? And so there's a lot on our plate every day as practitioners, as advisors, as practice leaders. And if we don't structure the day, it's very easy for time to be unallocated, unaccounted for, right? And so I think being super intentional with our time allows us to do so much more within each day here in the office for our clients, but it also allows us to really meet our fulfilling needs as husbands and fathers and sons and et cetera, right? Yep. We have a lot of titles. And one of the biggest challenges is really creating enough time for each one of those titles, right? And so day to day, what we're doing is being super intentional, right? I coach baseball, assistant coach. If I know I have practice, I definitely had 12 meetings that day before I left the office.
It's amazing.
And there was no downtime, and we did what we had to do. And the clients that wanted to meet that day felt like they were moving the ball forward. They have more awareness around their situation. They know what the action items are. If we had a service-oriented call, that client feels they're getting everything that they need. It's about having some structure and being disciplined within the structure that you set up.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, as you said that, it made me think of something that we didn't really chat about today is technology. Like, how are you using technology to manage your business, to manage your team, to manage the book? Like, are you doing good? I see you smiling, but is that a good thing or a bad thing?
We're using the technology. There are some areas we can improve on.
Okay.
The tenacity that I like to kind of do a lot of this stuff on my own is where I need to admittedly do a better job of delegating. Right. And we're making some hires in space to do that. But the technology question, we're using everything that the firm has available. And it does create a lot of efficiencies for us because we're not having to search for things individually through a large data set. Right. There are things that are brought to our attention day to day that we can act upon and really not miss a beat on certain milestones for clients, on certain important dates for clients, on, certainly review calls and when they're scheduled. But, even more, let's say, importantly, those milestones and the action items.
Yeah, it's great. And once again, I mean, it's part of growing your business that there's going to be areas that you work on that grow faster and some that grow slower, So what are some of your last thoughts for everyone that you want to make sure that you share with them? This has been amazing, by the way.
Yeah. So I think, no entrepreneurial position is easy, right? You need to have some strong mental foundations in place. You need to have a support system. You need to create the optimal situation for yourself, right? And if it requires making a major change, to not be intimidated by it, yes, right? And for everyone else who feels like they're in a great place, is to really continue to challenge yourself to grow, right? There's a very large total addressable market for the work that we do. People need our guidance more than ever before. And, it requires a certain level of intentionality, a certain level of rigor every day. And, for anyone who's brand new, right? You have a decision. Do you want to be uncomfortable now or uncomfortable later?
Yeah.
And you'd much rather be uncomfortable now.
Yeah. And I know that you're saying this to your team because they just are so appreciative of the position they're in and they know it's not always like this. So thank you for that. The last piece I want to say to you is congratulations to you, number one, on all the success, taking the leap and doing what you did. But the other thing is that is a secret to you. You talked about your two junior advisors being super coachable, but you've been super coachable. And I think that you being willing to listen, take it in the way you do. I joke about your being analytical, but you think things through. You're very different than you were 4 years ago, how you think through things and you take action and you have belief in it. And now you have the team around you. So congratulations. And I know that, as I said earlier, you're just getting started. So there's a bright future ahead of you.
Thank you, Paul.
You got it, Brian. And guys, please share this with everybody. Small steps, big wins. As you see through this, Brian's been taking very small steps and they're just in a short period of time, in 3.5 years, 4 years, you'll 5X the business. And that doesn't happen without taking small steps to get those big wins. So I appreciate you. Really fun. I can't wait to bring you back in a year or so to share when you're in the top 1% of the whole industry. So congratulations again, Brian.
Thanks, Paul.
You got it. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484. Telephone number 203-513-6000.